Hello friends, today we are going to talk about who Telman Ismailov is and why he is not extradited to Montenegro. Billionaires go bankrupt quite rarely, and therefore each such event is always very high profile. When in 2015 bankruptcy proceedings were opened in relation to our hero, he was forced to leave his business to creditors and permanently left the country. At the moment he is in Montenegro, but his brothers do not seem to want to send him back home. How did it happen that one of the richest businessmen in Moscow ended up like this? Telman Ismailov was born in 1956 in a small town in northern Azerbaijan into a mountain Jewish family. These are Jews who lived in the Caucasus for 1,500 years and over this time learned the mentality and customs of the local people. Therefore, our present character had a purely Jewish industriousness and commercial flair, as well as Caucasian pressure and business methods. His father was a shopkeeper, a clandestine entrepreneur, and at the dawn of perestroika he opened the Republic's first private store. The young man had worked in production from the age of 14, and then became his father's manager. By the time he finished school, he was already a fully developed manager. To develop his talents, Telman went to get an education in one of the universities in Baku. But as was the custom in Soviet times, he was drafted into the army in the middle of training. And after demobilization he did not return home, and transferred to complete his studies in Moscow. After graduation, the promising specialist was appointed economist at the Ministry of Industry and Trade, where he became close friends with Yuri Luzhkov, then first deputy chairman of the Moscow City Executive Committee. Later in their professional lives, they always went together, giving each other a helping hand in the most difficult moments. Having received such a high-ranking patron, the pushy businessman tried to develop as many economic niches in the Russian capital as possible. He had a chain of jewelry stores, a taxi park and a security firm, restaurants and his own hotels, but the cherry on the cake and the most important asset was the famous Cherkizon market, the largest point of small retail trade in the entire post-Soviet space. Ismailov had no access to oil assets, and therefore could not equal the capital and influence of the real sharks of Russian business. Nevertheless, in the mid-2000s he became one of the richest men in Moscow. His Caucasian habit of Ponzi and the beautiful life led him into show business. The protégé of the businessman was the budding artist Nikolai Boskov, and the unknown Abraham Russo decided to build a career in Russia at his instigation. He gave expensive watches or jewelry to foreigners who came to visit him, and one of his Caucasian acquaintances received a golden koran from his friend. In general, all was well with this man, if it were not for a pure accident. As a result of the incident at Cherkizon, the authorities became aware of the scale of the abuses committed there. Tens of thousands of Chinese illegals, counterfeit goods worth billions of dollars, and non-compliance with any government regulations. As a result, the market was shut down, and its owner began to take out loans to develop his business. At the end of the 20s, he began to have global problem number 2. The federal authorities of the Russian Federation came into conflict with the Moscow mayor. For the country's top leaders, shaking Ismailov a little was the same as kicking a dog to get its owner to turn around. In the end he was kicked, and in 2009 our hero left the country. At that time he was still considered a successful businessman and had no problem getting $1 billion in loans to build the most expensive hotel in the world in Turkey. At its opening, the hot Caucasian man appeared on the arm of a guest star, Monica Bellucci. What he gave her for it is unknown, but Sharon Stone became the owner of a diamond necklace. Nevertheless, in Turkey, it soon became clear that this man had nothing to pay his debts. He had to flee again, and this time he went to Montenegro. Montenegrin authorities refused to extradite the man to Russia a week earlier, because they did not trust the information provided by the local law enforcement officers. Besides, this is not the Serbs. This country joined NATO and is going to join the EU. So it has to earn political points. And one can be sure that they will not give it to the Turks either. Incidentally, it is not only these two countries that want to deal with the bankrupt mountain Jew. In addition to accusations of cheating, the Russian authorities accuse him of physically eliminating his competitors and putting pressure on the unruly singer Abraham Russo.